Oh, you know. Oh, hola, 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 cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate, joined by Zane Simon, bringing you the sixth round for UFC Dublin, the UFC Fight Night. Conor McGregor versus Diego Brandao. Gotta say, fun card, Zane Simon. I hear you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. I mean, what more do you want? You get two
Maybe
submissions,
a
or you
competitive
three?
match, but ding.
What?
But otherwise,
Oh, I didn't even hear you, so lost on me.
actually, the Uncle Creepy Brad Pickett fight was very competitive. Although it
Yeah.
was pretty.
Well, I don't know that it was competitive. I mean, it was a fun fight, but
Yeah, it was competitive, although rarely in doubt. But so there wasn't like anything I would call a great classic on this card, but it was a lot of fun.
yeah, I mean, it was just a solid card from top to bottom. You got three submissions, you got four knockouts, and all of your decisions were entertaining all the way through. I mean, there weren't any just like really terrible, boring fights that you had to sit through. There were some terrible fights, but they were really fun in
Yes,
how
yes,
awful
they
they
were.
were.
Nikita Krylov, we'll be talking about him soon. That was a very terrible fight, but very fun, very fun. But first off, Conor McGregor. I don't know that he fulfilled the hype, but he looked good. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, which was win basically a squash match against a guy in Diego Brandao who's not really going anywhere in the division. And rumor was, I mean, if I'm hearing a rumor that the guy didn't train seriously for the fight, then the guy didn't train seriously for the fight because I never hear rumors, and I heard that one twice.
Huh? I didn't come across that at all, but it wouldn't. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the deal with Brandao is. I used to. I mean, I do know what the deal with him is. It's just kind of unfortunate because I was pretty high on him when he came into the UFC and won Season of Tough. You know, he was a
Yep.
tough champ. He's got a really nice mix of skills, but he's mentally breakable, and he just. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how well his training is going. Like he hasn't really changed or evolved. For a while, it looked like Greg Jackson really had him on lockdown and had him calm down, and he was really fighting to his strengths. But I mean, that fight with Poirier was just a shit show, and he didn't look nearly as bad for this at all. I mean, that
No, but
was
but the competition was significantly better, I believe.
like then Poirier. I don't know about that. I mean, Poirier is really good.
Poirier is very good, but I think McGregor is just a step ahead of Poirier. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm high. This is the first time I went back and watched the Brimage fight last night after shitting on McGregor and with that one and this one, I do kind of see the excitement of McGregor. I mean, he's
Well,
got
yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic talent, but I guess you would say Poirier not, and if you're gonna like, MMA math is not equal, but Poirier knocked Brandao out in 140 or in the first round at 454. McGregor knocked him out in the first round at 448. I mean, they're pretty similar talents where they are right now in the world. It's hard to say who's quite a step ahead. McGregor is the easier to hype talent right now because he doesn't have the big UFC losses that Poirier's taken, where and both those were in really good fights. I mean, Poirier went strike for strike with Swanson for 3 rounds. And
he did, and he gave the Korean Zombie quite a bit of trouble before ended
yeah,
up getting submitted. So he's. I'd like to see Poirier and McGregor. That would be a fun
that's
fight.
certainly what the UFC's pushing. That's what they, that's right away after the broadcast. Hardy and Gooden were they had the UFC featherweight ranking thing up, and they're like, oh, what do you think about Poirier fighting him? And that'd be great. So that's obviously the direction that they're trying to.
And what do you think of that matchup?
It would be great. I mean, it would be fun at some point. Like, well, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, do you burn out two potential title challengers to make one really good one,
Yes, that's what the UFC
or
always does.
it is what the UFC always does, and in that way, it's fine. Otherwise, I'd be happy to see McGregor fight the Nick Lentzes and the kind of guys who are never going to contend but are still really strong and tough, and Poirier too, because they're both reasonably young. I mean, McGregor's actually a year older than Poirier,
Yeah, I would
so
never put McGregor anywhere near Nick Lentz unless McGregor was the champion and Nick Lentz was the only possible challenger. I don't see that. I don't see anything
Nick
good
Lentz is
coming.
not Nick Lentz is not beating Conor McGregor. He's not. No
I'm
amount
not
of
saying it's just the risk. Like, I think McGregor would win that fight, but if McGregor loses, it's going to be ugly, and you're just coming out of there with Nick Lentz not looking like a fan favorite, not looking like a title hunting sensation, and you've got McGregor's brand seriously
Chad
damaged.
Mendez beat the pants off Nick Lentz for 3 rounds with a cold, like with a fever. I mean, if and like Lentz is very good, but McGregor, those are the kind of fights that it'd be like him fighting Clay Guida or something. I mean, these are the kind of fights that he shouldn't have any trouble winning if he's going to be a title challenger. And if we
It's
wanted to
true.
be,
It's true.
I mean, I don't want to see him I don't want to see him get a title shot just for the joy of watching him in a title shot. Like, why, if you've got somebody who's going to be really like an Anderson Silva-esque talent on your hands, then
Now
you might.
that is a bold statement. Anderson
Well,
Silva-esque talent.
I mean, okay, but like Lyoto Machida is an Anderson Silva-esque talent, or I mean, Brandon Thatch. You've got a bunch of guys who have that potential to be somebody who just wrecks everyone they face and does it with
And
ease.
does it in a very
I'm not saying like
stylistically distinctive
going to
way.
be the greatest ever. I'm just saying that he's dominating opponents and he's doing it in a way that looks good and excites people.
It's true, but talk about the Poirier match before we talk about the rest of this card. I mean, what are the strengths and weaknesses? Who do you see having the advantage in that fight, and where?
McGregor is probably the superior technical fighter standing up. But the thing with Poirier is that he's got a good chin and he hits harder than almost anyone else at featherweight in a way that people really don't like. They kind of pass over it with him, like, oh yeah, well, he doesn't have that many like big one-punch knockouts or anything. But I was saying with the Cub Swanson fight, I mean, he went strike for strike with Swanson, and how he ended up losing is that Swanson went to his wrestling and decided to start taking him down because Poirier can eat shots and deliver hard ones in return. So I think it would probably go similar to the Swanson fight, honestly. That's where I would see it.
You think McGregor would resort to wrestling to beat Poirier?
I think he could resort to it. I don't think he would necessarily resort to it, but I think it would be fairly even on the feet. And then the fact that McGregor just has maybe one or two more tricks up his sleeve has shown a little bit better ground and pound and a little bit more diversity than being just sort of tough and swarming and hard hitting means that I think he would maybe take it, but it would be a tough, close fight.
Well, let's suppose that McGregor took that fight, edged Poirier. I would assume that he would be in a title shot fairly quickly against, and we'll just assume against Jose Aldo. What do you think of McGregor's chances against Jose Aldo?
That gets into like, I don't know. It gets into the whole like I'm not gonna pick against Jose Aldo. Like I'm just not. I'm not gonna.
That's a wise stance.
And I don't even know how I would match that fight up. I mean, Aldo is really poised, really controlled, really selective with how he creates his offense. He does it really well, and so I don't see him opening the kind of opportunities for McGregor to just blast him in the way that some of the wilder fighters he's fought so far have. And then so at that point it gets to the point of Aldo also hasn't been stopping people lately. He hasn't been taking a lot of opportunities. He's been kind of content to front run and just get out ahead and stay out ahead. So it would just be about whether or not McGregor could create enough of his own offense, especially late after he felt like he'd found a rhythm to the fight. Because Aldo has, in the past few fights, either lost or let the last round be very close. So.
Yeah, he's got a nasty habit of giving away final rounds. That goes back all the way to the fight. Guy with the Canadian guy with the Hominick. Yeah, Mark Hominick. That fight was an infamous example of Aldo giving away around. I think Aldo's big advantage though would be he's got more of a classic boxing Muay Thai striking style, whereas McGregor has the side karate stance, throws in a lot of. They were even talking about capoeira moves. That's a fairly inefficient way to fight in a striking battle. It uses a lot of energy. The book on Muay Thai boxers versus karateka is generally that the Muay Thai system is more direct, more efficient, more energy efficient, and so I wonder if McGregor would fade in the later rounds. We haven't seen McGregor in the fifth round, fourth round either, so we don't know how that
Yeah.
would go. But let's talk about the rest of this card. I have to say, the Irish crowd was awesome, very excited all the way through, right from the beginning. Patrick Hooligan Holohan demolished Josh Sampo to get them off their seats onto their feet. What do you think of that first one? Any surprises there? Did you pick Sampo?
I picked Sampo. I think anybody with half a brain in their head that wasn't Holohan's training partner would have picked Sampo, honestly. I mean, and what this comes down to, too, is that the guy hasn't fought in 2 years. Like, not only did his early fights not look impressive, but he hasn't been in the cage for 2 years. So he was a huge underdog for or should have been. I'm not sure exactly where the odds ended up falling for it, but I think he was a pretty strong underdog for it. And in my mind, he was a huge underdog for it. So I was shocked that he won. It's big props to him. Sampo's a tough guy. I think of Sampo as like a gatekeeper to the top 10, top 15 at flyweight. So beating him is huge.
And speaking of huge, Holohan looked huge. I mean, the height, 5'10" at flyweight is very big.
It is. It is really big. And he launched himself straight into some hard punches, too. So Sampo's not a great hard-hitting kickboxer. Like, his kickboxing is serviceable, but he's not heavy-handed. He's more known for his defensive poise and ability to not absorb too many shots. So I would wonder if you stuck Holohan in against somebody like Horiguchi or Joseph Benavidez or some of those guys who really pack some power in the division. He has a chancy style that tends to launch him straight into hard shots, and I'd worry about that. But the crowd was behind him. He was able to get through taking some hard shots in this one and landed a huge uppercut, and he looks fun. He looks like he's a fun fighter who has a little more athletic talent than I gave him credit for. So I was really happy to see him get a win.
Me too, and look forward to seeing his next fight. I don't expect him to break into contendership at any point. Now, speaking of a guy that doesn't get any respect, Nikita Al Capone Krylov.
He will continue to get no respect.
But he is fun as shit. That was 4 minutes and 57 seconds of mayhem, and it was just no end of fun.
Yeah, the guy scraps like there's no he has the just scrap mentality down pat. Like, he will fight every second of every round of every fight he's in from any position. He will try and do the best he can to hurt his opponent, and the best he can may not be very good. I mean, there were times when it looked like two bop it clowns going at each other with or like the two the flaily air guys with the big flaily arms. Two of them right next to each other. Yes. I mean, there were a lot of moments like that in that fight, but
there definitely were. But he's young, and I think that discipline and fight IQ are things that improve as you age, and I'm seeing. I think he's got the basic athleticism.
Yeah.
He seems to be improving aspects of his game. He can scramble. He gets himself into some bad positions, but he got himself out of them. And Cody Donovan's no world beater, and isn't somebody with a great fight IQ himself, but is a serious professional fighter. And I think Krylov's better than a lot of people gave him credit for.
Well, Krylov has good kicks. He's got some of the better kicks in his division, even just like his ability to snap off a head kick. There are not many guys above 170 pounds even who can do that well, who can just snap out a head kick like that.
Yeah.
So he's got that. Unfortunately, like, his karate style, his karateka training means that he tends to just rush forward with his chin way out and both hands out going, like this when he's punching. And that'll require a lot of fixing. And he tends to, he's fully willing to put himself in a lot of bad positions on the ground, but he's tough as hell. So he'll always be fun to watch. I'm happy to see him get a win because he has a lot more upside than Donovan. And all of his fights are going to be horrible and weird and fun for whatever reason. I mean, whether it's getting caught in a Von Flue choke or just like the oiled wrestling match he had with Soa Palele. You know, he's always going to be a fun fighter to watch.
Indeed, indeed, and look forward to seeing him again. And that brings us to middleweights: Trevor Smith and Tor Tronig. I thought this was probably the most tedious fight on the card, but it was a good back and forth fight.
Yeah.
There was a momentum swing. Tor dominated the first round, and Smith poured it on from the second half of the second going forward. Thoughts on this? Where do you see? I don't see either of these guys going anywhere.
It's really unfortunate because middleweight basically just got another Joe Average dude. Like, that's what happened. Troing had a little bit of hype. Years ago, Bloody Elbow did a scouting report in which they thought of him as like the number 8 up-and-coming middleweight in the world. You know, he looked all right on Tough, kind of got caught in a bad KO off from Josh Saman in their fight, and but he still had a little bit of promise. He, fought some pretty decent fights in the UFC so far. His loss to Natal was at least entertaining. But this just showed so much bad fight IQ. Like, he was outstriking Smith. And the thing with Troing is that he's always been more of a wrestler and top control grappler at heart. So he just couldn't stop himself from going back to like his base and what he thinks he does well. And Smith just swept him every time and had a much, much heavier top game. So unfortunately, that doesn't say anything good about Smith. Smith looked terrible early in this fight. He looked terrible against Talis Latis. He did not look good against Brian Houston. He did not look good against Ed Herman. He did not look good. He has not looked good in a while. And Troing just basically gave him the fight. So I don't know what you can really say about that.
Yeah, it doesn't take us anywhere. But it was one of the few losses by European fighters on this card, which had to make the matchmakers happy, because this sort of had that feel that some of the Brazilian cards have, where, if the biggest expense the UFC is dropping on you in your fight is the airplane ticket, then you might want to suspect you're being fed to the lions in some foreign country. That's one of my theories there. And Mike King almost broke that pattern. Put a beating on Cathal Pendred, a 10-8 round for sure, maybe a 10-7 round. I'd like to see the judges score
10-9 all the way across.
Was it really?
Yes.
That's just amazing. You get a knockdown and 2 very close submission attempts, beat the crap out of the guy from pillar to post for 5 minutes, and get 10-9s all the way across. MMA judging just kills me. But King gassed himself. You could tell immediately when the second round started that King was done. And Pendred...
I'm still shocked that Pendred rallied back. Even with King being gassed, I am totally shocked that Pendred was able to recover. I thought that after the first round, I thought it was just a matter of time before he lost. I mean, and even if it was just a decision where he got worn out because he was too punch drunk to figure out the rest of what was up for the rest of the fight, I did not see him having any hope of coming back in this fight. So it was amazing that he did. And that late submission he got on King was fantastic. Although, like I said, watching it, I mean, it was basically the fight itself was basically the round or part 2 of Nikita Krylov, Cody Donovan in terms of technique and skill out there.
Yes.
I said that it looked like roadies at a Slayer concert going at it.
I think the roadies at the Slayer concert have better discipline and more technique. I've seen them in action. They're a vicious crew. But a fine fight by Pendred. Just set the crowd on fire. Really good performance.
Yeah, great performance. He needs to work a ton on his technical skills. He's a great athlete. He's tough as nails. But he does not have a lot of technique in the bag.
No, but he's training with a good crew, and so presumably... And a win like this is just going to be a huge boost for your confidence. I mean, there's no way you can come back from taking a beating like that in the first round, come back, get the finish, and not feel like, the stud of the earth after that win. But flyweight Neil Seery beat Phil Harris. Pretty easy win. I felt pretty bad for Harris, actually. Nice guy from Portsmouth, England. Yep. Just getting fed to an Irish fighter in front of a Dublin crowd. Like, every time he was down on his back and Seery was kicking his legs, the Irish crowd was going ape. They love to see a Brit get kicked while he's down, and who can blame him? But
Well, and I mean the funny thing there is that I mean Harris has already beat Series, so it's not a fighter it's not a fight that was poorly made in that aspect of like it should have been competitive,
Oh,
but the truth
it
is,
definitely should have, and it shows it's a testament to series improvement,
yeah,
and kind of surprising. I mean, not a guy I would have expected at his age and base skill set as a boxer to be showing that kind of improvement. I mean, the guy's almost 35 years old, really has no business improving that much from
well,
fight to fight, but he
and
did.
I think what the thing is there is that I don't know that he's necessarily improved, but it's that his style of fighting helped immensely by not being at a severe size disadvantage. Like he only dropped a few fights ago, like 3 fights ago, he finally made it down to 125. He started his career 145, and some of his fights are like early, barely regulated stuff, and could have easily been higher than that. I don't know where he's really started, but he fought the bulk of his career at 145, moved down to 135 not long ago, and like just last year finally went down to 125. And when you have like a tight technical boxing game that really relies on footwork and speed, being at a size disadvantage where you're fighting bigger, stronger guys who can take you down and grind you out, that really plays hell. And so maybe he's not gotten way better, but now that he's finally not fighting guys 20 pounds heavier than him, his style is just much more functional. I mean, that's I think what's going on.
Maybe so, but the previous Harris fight, I mean, was the template of that. Harris didn't have a huge size advantage. They fought at bantamweight, but he did manage to take Siri down repeatedly and hold him down. Wasn't able to do that today. I mean, that to me says some degree of improvement in
Yeah,
his
he
sprawl.
has definitely improved something, and I think mostly it's maybe that dropping the extra weight makes him faster, makes him a little lighter on his feet.
Quite possibly, and he definitely hurt Harris early, which I don't
Yeah,
recall him doing in that fight in Bama.
no.
So
He's kind of like a little Irish John Lineker, like a B grade John Lineker. Makes him a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, indeed. And there's I'm curious to see if they'll bring Siri across the pond and let him fight in the U.S. I don't think he's going to make any waves in the flyweight division, but it would be fun to see him against some of the punch-happy guys in that division. John Moraga or John Lineker, either one, come
Yeah.
to mind. All right, then the last fight on the prelims, Ilir Latifi destroyed Chris Dempsey. Was Dempsey a late substitute, or did they? I
Dempsey
mean,
was
because
a
that was
late substitute for Tom Lawler.
yes,
It
that
would have
was
actually
much
been a
tougher fight.
fun, interesting fight, and nice to see Lawler back in the cage. He's been out for about 2 years now, I think, after he blew out his knee, and he got injured again. And Chris Dempsey's not only is he a late replacement, but light heavyweight is so thin right now that all of the recent replacement light heavyweight fighters the UFC has brought in are regional middleweights, including Dempsey. They aren't getting any guys who fight at 205 to call up short notice and replace at 205. So, I mean, Latifi may be the strongest fighter in the UFC. Like, out and out stronger than any of the heavyweights, stronger than anyone else.
Hmm.
And fighting up him like against a regional middleweight in his debut is
It
just
is
like,
pretty brutal, and it seemed pretty clear that the criteria for getting this fight was, do you have a passport? Like,
yeah, oh, absolutely.
so, although it would have been interesting to see Lawler moving up to light heavyweight as well. I think he would have been at a
Yeah.
significant strength disadvantage, and stylistically, I don't know that he has. His style is very much like Latifi's, both a wrestle boxer kind of guy. So, but
Yeah, I don't know if Lawler would have done way better, but it would have been he would have been a much craftier vet, with a lot more experience and a lot more time and tools in the trade. Dempsey's just kind of like a young, promising middleweight. And you're throwing him up against a guy who could like deadlift him.
Yes, yes, but it is nice to see Latifi get another win, and it sort of creates something out of nothing, and so far
Oh,
as
yeah. I mean, it was a
Latifi
hell of a nice KO. He that was one of those like the legs bend the wrong way and just like totally dead.
and then hits him after he's out on the ground, which is no fault of Latifi's, but it would have been nice if the ref had been in better position. Not a great night of reffing tonight.
No.
I had to say there was a number of fights where they let it go on a little bit too long, and that was one of them. But let's move on to the main card. Norman Park Naoki Katani. Now this was a fish being fed to the sharks here. Katani
Yeah.
just got demolished. Demolished. It was
I had a
brutal.
feeling that would happen. I was really hoping that Kotani wouldn't. He has he's a catch wrestling based fighter, which immediately and with somebody with his amount of experience, he's fought a lot of top guys. He's been competitive before, and so you really want to see somebody with like a funky grappling wrestling style like that do well. But he fights like a regional Japanese vet. I mean, it's slow. It's really systematic, really even, really doesn't create his own opportunities. He waits for his opponent to create opportunities for him. And Park is
And he counts on taking on walking through punches, which is just a terrible idea at this level.
he counts on walking through punches, and he counts on his opponents slipping up badly enough that they will let him get easy takedowns.
Yeah.
That's a big thing he counts on. And Park is a tree stump. He's really underrated at welterweight as a wrestler. I mean, the guy is impossible to take down and to get down and keep down. And it was always going to be a long night for Kotani because of that. I wanted to see Kotani do better, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if he's going to have any chance in the UFC, he needs to cut down to featherweight. He seemed way small in there.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
that's right. That was a lightweight, and Park's a lightweight. I keep forgetting that. But yeah, he would need to go down to featherweight. He needs, I don't know. I just don't think he's got any chances to really stick around, unfortunately.
no, I really don't either. But he should.
Thing is a huge problem.
Yeah, it's the continual disappointment to anybody who likes Japanese fighters that the style just doesn't translate well to the UFC. All right, but let's go to flyweights. Ian McCall and Brad Pickett. Uncle Creepy, it was his fight all the way.
Yep.
Pickett, to me, his age is showing. He didn't look that great in his last few outings at bantamweight. I was underwhelmed by his flyweight debut against Siri. And then he just had nothing from McCall. Pickett's best hope, I thought, was that the judges would think McCall was running away because of the way McCall was backpedaling to control distance and then lunging in.
Yeah, Pickett looked shockingly similar to Diego Sanchez in this fight.
Well, now that's harsh.
Wins his decisions.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I mean, I don't want to, I'm not saying that Pickett is not a good
fighter or he just he lost or he took 3 shots for every one he landed, and he was moving forward the whole time. But it was pretty clear that he didn't have an answer for McCall's speed and movement and footwork at any point. And, I mean, I just credit McCall for sticking with a smart game plan. He's not a heavy-handed dude. He's not going to knock a lot of people out. But he loves to get in and trade in big firefights. So I was pretty glad to see him just stay moving, stay quick, stay on the outside, take the easy win.
Yeah, and his takedowns were very clever and well timed as well. So I don't know that he's a legitimate threat to Mighty Mouse, but there was the one fight where he gave Mighty Mouse everything he could handle. So
yeah.
if McCall can get another, I don't know, maybe one more win. And this is a division that's pretty desperate for title challengers, as witnessed by Chris Carriazo getting a title shot. Of course, that's with John Dodson out. With serious knee injuries.
They've got a lot of people who will be ready in a year or two, but not anybody knocking on the door right now.
Yeah, and so McCall might even be able to. I don't know. I would think he would need one more win to get a title shot, but quite possibly could do it. But let's talk about Gunnar Nelson. The Icelandic karateka finished Zach Cummings in the second round. Honestly, I was a little worried about Nelson in this one. I thought. It took him a little while to find his rhythm. Cummings was tagging him with lefts. He was backing straight up and eating a couple more, but he never was in any serious trouble. He probably won the first round, and the thing is, once he got Cummings hurt and took him down, damn, that jiu-jitsu is slick.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I hate this because I've entered this weird catch-22 with Gunnar Nelson, where I think he's a great talent. I think he's a great fighter. But people are the hype around him right now is kind of gotten to this point where it's you're not. People are hyping him in ways that don't make sense to me. Like, oh, he's gonna demolish Cummings on the feet, and it's like he didn't even come close to demolishing him on the feet.
No.
Not even close. And Cummings is not a great striker. Like, let's not pretend that this was like him fighting some world-beating, power striking machine. Cummings is a wrestler with a good submission grappling game and some power in his hands, but not like a fluid striking game. And Nelson was okay. He looked fine, but he got a really good win against a tough opponent. Like, that's where this was. Cummings was tough, did well and was competitive, and then the nice thing for Nelson was that Nelson, unlike Cummings' last opponent, Jan Cabral,
Yeah.
Nelson gives you, when he gets dominant positions, he gives you no space. And Cummings does have a bad habit of giving up dominant positions when he's on the ground, when he grapples. And
yeah.
so,
at one point it looked like Nelson had gotten himself into a bad position, but then he quickly reversed and just the guy's deadly on the ground. I have to hand it to him. But I think Nelson would be well served to consider cutting down the lightweight. He's at an age where he's going to be putting on more mass, but he seems a little bit small for welterweight, honestly, to me.
He's stopping dudes. So as long as I don't see. Some people have said that, and I don't know. I don't think that weight cutting would be an answer for him. He's a great technical fighter who fights with a great technical style. He handled one of the largest welterweights in terms of strength. Cummings he's 6 foot, so he's not small, but he's not like, he's not Brandon Thatch tall. But he's about as big as welterweights get, and Nelson did a fine job of controlling him in the clinch.
Yeah, sure. He could muscle him around the cage, which I was impressed to see.
Yeah, so, this was a great performance by Nelson against a much better opponent than he fought last time out, much better than Amari Akhmadov. So I was impressed by it. I like what I'm seeing out of Nelson, and, he's not...
Who do you want to see him fight next?
God, I don't know. Welterweight is full of good fights. A fight with Rick Story would be a lot of fun.
Oh my God! See, that I just see going a lot like when Matt Brown beats Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like I just think Rick Story is a whole different level of tough than Gunnar Nelson is. But I could be wrong about that.
It was a test that even if people. Not everybody, even if it was indecisive, it was a test that Kelvin Gastelum could weather. So,
That's true.
I would love to see Nelson fight Story. I think that would be a solid, good fight. Story's not even, is he even in the top 15 right now? I don't think he is.
Nope.
So, it wouldn't be, I think Nelson's ranked like 10 or something, or 11.
He's ranked 13. So, yeah, I don't see a Story getting that fight, actually. Stun Gun Kim's up there. Kevin Gastelum's ahead of Nelson. Mike Pyle. Mike Pyle would be an interesting fight, maybe.
Pyle would be a good fight, too. Pyle, I'd be happy to see him fight somebody like Pyle or Story. I don't really... I want to see him continue to get tough fights that aren't top 5 right now, because, quite frankly, I don't think his striking output is high enough.
No. And could you imagine, Hector Lombard is sitting there at number 6. Can you imagine what Lombard would do to Nelson?
Yeah, right now, it could really easily be not pretty. Nelson, there were several times when Cummings was able to just bull rush him and land 3 or 4 shots, and Nelson didn't have anything to return. He just kind of took it and moved back and reset, and he's looking, he's got this counter-striking game right now going that is, a little like early Lyoto Machida, where without the power.
Yeah.
So, you're waiting for these perfect opportunities, and then when you get them, you're not necessarily hurting your opponent really badly.
Yeah, it's he's definitely fundamentally a jiu-jitsu guy. And the one thing I like about that, though, is that he waits until his guys are tired and hurt before he really... When he goes to the ground, he goes for the kill, and he goes against weak and prey. So that's in his advantage. But let's go back to the main event. Further thoughts on McGregor Brandao. My one thought I was really enjoying the initial striking exchange before they locked up in the clinch, because I thought Brandao was hinting at what I said that Aldo might do, where you see some of the flaws in McGregor's karate-based striking style when he's faced up against somebody from just this more straight-on Muay Thai style. When the strikes are coming from shorter, it's a more efficient movement. A karate guy's side stance, they have to make bigger movements. I don't know. If McGregor's vulnerable, I think that's where he's vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's one of those things where McGregor has evolved, his style has evolved so much over such a short time that I really am not sure what I expect to see each time. Like, and I'm not sure how long the holes are going to last.
It's true. He's young and he's still improving, and so the holes are closing rapidly.
He looks much. He looks like he's throwing a lot more out there and doing a lot more stuff than he did when he fought Brimage or Holloway. Well, Holloway, he hurt his knee, so who knows what's going. That really was it. And this is also his first fight back from a long layoff. I mean, eventually, I think that he beat up Brandao pretty handily. I mean, there was no point at which he was in any sort of danger. The biggest attempt or tests that he had to pass and that he passed with flying colors were that he did engage Brandao in prolonged scrambles on the ground, and he did just fine. Because that's where Brandao really presented the most danger to him, is that Brandao's great at linking or catching up submissions quickly on the ground.
Yeah, and when Brandao had his McGregor's heel in the crook of his elbow, I was worried there for a split second, but McGregor knew exactly what to do, and the announcer said that training with Gunnar Nelson has paid dividends, and that's clearly the case there. And looking at the featherweight top 10, I mean, Nick Lentz is somebody you already mentioned. Dennis Sievers had steroid problems. I don't see him getting that fight. Jeremy Stevens would be an interesting test.
That would be a very interesting test. Really, I mean, Stevens, like we said this about Stevens when he fought Cub Swanson. Stevens is fighting at his peak right now. I mean, Stevens is better than ever, and he's easily one of the top 5, if not, maybe just out. Now, I'd even say he's comfortably one of the top 5 featherweights. Like, and partially, I don't. That may be that I don't really. I don't really have a good placement on Frankie Edgar, and think to the fact that he keeps moving up the rankings for beating Charles Oliveira and
BJ Penn
is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they want to get him back in there in a title shot, but Stevens, of course, he did lose the fight to Swanson, so I don't see him get. You'd think it's going to be somebody coming off a win. What's Clay Guida doing? What was Guida's last?
Guida just beat Tetsuya Kawajiri.
Yeah. I could see Guida being fed to McGregor.
Yeah, I could see that.
But that's all it would be.
Yeah, it would be feeding. I mean, Guida, Guida exposed the fact that Kawajiri does not have a run at the top 10 in him.
No, not at this point in time.
Yeah. And that was kind of sad, but that doesn't really say, I'm not like, oh, Guida's reinvented, he's back because he beat Kawajiri. It's more like, now Guida's a solid top 10, top 15 fighter, and he exposed that Kawajiri's just not.
Yeah. And then the Korean Zombie is still out with injuries. I don't expect to see him back anytime soon. Ricardo Lamas at number 4.
That would be a hell of a fun fight, like a Korean Zombie return fight, though. That would be...
It's true, but what's the? I can't. I mean, have you heard anything lately about
his injuries were long term enough that the language barrier and all that. Like, you're not going to be getting a whole bunch of English interviews from him, like updates and stuff like that. So I think he's just healing up. I might actually be surprised if he ever fights again.
Yeah,
the amount of shoulder problems he's had.
Yeah, it's sad to think that, but it's entirely possible. But Lamas is coming off a win over Hakan Diaz, so he might.
Lamas would be a pretty good fight too.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a fight, but that's probably about as dangerous as they're going to throw McGregor in with. Probably, I would be surprised actually if they give him Lamas. I would think they give him Clay Guida, give him another win. But does he fight in the States? Does he fight on a UFC card, or are they going to keep him You know,
Oh,
I
he'll
mean,
fight in the States. They're not going back to Ireland often enough to make him only fight in Ireland.
yeah, and
I
the
mean,
European cards, I just don't see any upside. But then again, you know that's the exact same thing they did with Alexander Gustafsson. They kept him fighting in Europe way past the point at which they needed to introduce him to the U.S. audience.
yeah,
So
but Gus. I mean, and Gus is a huge star in his home country, and uh, McGregor's a huge star in his home country too. But McGregor has a lot more outside of eye appeal. I mean, they're
yeah,
gonna sell. They can build him up and sell serious pay-per-views with him on him, and they're probably not going to put on a lot of pay-per-views in Ireland. Like they might do
yeah.
one someday, but
It's true. It's true. I would like to see him fight on Big Fox. I would like to see him fight
yeah.
Guida on a Fox card, and then immediately go for a title shot and the whole pay-per-view ball of wax. Anyway, any final thoughts on the card before we wrap it up?
It was a ton of fun. I mean, this has been a really nice stretch for the UFC in terms of their matchmaking and cards and all that. It feels, I don't know, like they've been swallowing up so many fighters lately and just like getting as many people as they can for as many fights as they can. And I mean, maybe they're finally starting to get that sorted a little bit and kind of let people fall into place a little, because I think for a while it just kind of felt like they were just tossing dudes out there and seeing what floated. So
Yeah, the last two, even last three cards have all been really solid, which is nice because the previous three before that were pretty much shit shows. So maybe four or five before that, and so they're on a good run. Next week we've got Lawler versus Brown on Fox, so we'll be previewing that all week. We'll have the Care Don't Care previews. Eugene will have Knuckle Up on Monday, looking back at this card. Then we'll have the Care Don't Care preview. Then we'll have the Vivisection, probably with you, Dallas and Connor. And then we'll go into Robbie Lawler versus Matt Brown, which might not attract a lot of ratings, but should be as fun as a fight can be. So
yeah, the card looks great top to bottom. Oh, and Guida's fighting on that one, so there you go.
so that could, if
So
Guida gets
maybe
a
the
win,
winner between Guida and Dennis Bermudez, that would be an excellent next step fight.
yeah, that's very true because Bermudez is at number 11. So, although actually I like Bermudez' chances in that, but we'll look at that fight more next week as we prepare for UFC on Fox, Lawler versus Brown. All right, everybody, remember to follow us on Twitter at @TheZaneSimon, at KidNate. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube so you can see all these magical videos as they happen. Give us a like. That's the thumb on the screen below you. And adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time.